Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's an honor to be here. Before I get into this, in the short time I have, I'm going to try to tackle a very deep topic for you. But before I do that, I want to give proper recognition to this amazing team that put on this amazing event. Please give a big round of applause to Madison and the CreativeMornings. Really, really wonderful. I've been to a lot of events, and this is world class. I'm from Chicago. I've been in Birmingham for 10 months. I love it. I came down here with my wife, and we've really blended into the culture and connected with a lot of magical people. We are very happy to be here. I will give a shout out to Chicago right now because they're having a Creative Mornings right now at this minute at a venture called Sprout Social. And I got to tell you, on a per capita basis, we blew them away in the attendance. We really, truly did. You can compare it on the website. So I am very proud for that. Let's jump right in. I'm going to do my very best to give you a unique perspective on something that I think is very important to all of us. The theme for this month is wonder. And I think we've all had the experience of connecting with somebody that we just click with, okay? The synergy, the passion. You complete each other's sentences. You're able to bring the best out of each other, whether it's in life or in work, on a team, in a musical band, whatever it is. It's a magical moment, and it does create a sense of wonder. We are all very interested in that. We have a very intense entrepreneurial ecosystem here, and human beings have been thinking about this phenomenon for a very long time. It never fails to inspire a sense of wonder in you when you experience it. And I think everybody here knows what I'm talking about, that synergy. I'm going to give you some frameworks to think about that. But before I do, I'm bringing this up and I'm asking you to look at it. And just breathe for a minute and just look at the image on the screen, please. It is an optical illusion. All of the spheres are the same color. They may not look like the same color when you first view them, but they are. If you can focus on one and look at it, and then quickly focus on another, you will begin to see that they are indeed the same color. They do not look like the same color. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I'm trying to gear your mind and prepare your mind to think deeply. For me, dealing with optical illusions is a great way to prepare my brain to think creatively. And I'm asking you to do that right now. Just spend some time looking at this. And then get ready to self-reflect, because I'm going to ask you to bear witness to who you truly are in a public way here in a minute, and it's going to require you to focus and reflect. So let's get started. Across the domain of time and human history, there has been one fundamental dimension that varies across people. We can go back millennia, we can go back hundreds of years, or we can even think about our friends and our colleagues right now. Some people just like to be in charge and control and change the world around them, and others prefer to abide by the world around them and just go with the flow. Everybody varies on this dimension, and it's important that we have variance and diversity in terms of this dimension. Start thinking about yourself right now, and imagine when you're on a team or in an entrepreneurial venture, or thinking about your plan or what you want to do, and think about if you are more comfortable being in charge or more comfortable not being in charge. By in charge, at the top of the dimension up here, I mean you are so comfortable being in charge and controlling and directing that you don't even want to be on the team unless you can be the leader. There's people like that. And then at the other end of the dimension, you're almost never interested in being the leader. You're the one that provides the assist, that supports other people, you're a coordinator, whatever it is. We all vary in terms of this fundamental dimension. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to point at the top and go down. And when the pointer hits the level of the dimension that you personally are at, I want you to raise your hand. And then when it leaves that area that describes you, put your hand down. All right? And be very honest about this. All right, at the maximum extreme, raise your hand if that's you. Okay. Now I'm going to way up here. Now I'm going to go down. Okay, very good, very Now remember where you were. We're going to move forward. There's another fundamental human dimension of humans and our ontological experience in the world, and it's quite different. It's orthogonal to the first one, and it has more to do with warmth. Some people just love being around other people. They're not comfortable unless they have other people around them that they can talk to. Others are more comfortable being alone. They're more comfortable working alone. They don't need to be around other people. They get more energy when they can focus and not be distracted by other people being around them. And at the other extreme, at the engaging side, we're talking about people who really need to share what they're thinking at any moment. And if they can't be around people, they start to get a little bit anxious. And then finally, when they get somebody to talk to, they love being around them and sharing experiences with them. People vary on this dimension in the same way that they vary on the first one that we just looked at. So I'm going to ask you to please do the same exercise. When I point at the dimension, think about where you are on the continuum. So who's way over here? Okay, now I'm going to move to the middle. All right, good. There's approximately a normal distribution on both dimensions, which is exactly what I would expect. That's very interesting. Okay, now we're going to dive a little deeper, and I want you to think about the dimensions at the same time. We're going to think in two-dimensional space now. When we think about compatibility, the first dimension is governed by what we'll call opposites attract. People who lead like to be around people who follow. People who like to follow like to be around people who prefer to lead. On the other dimension, it is governed by the logic of birds of a feather flock together. Engaging people like to be around engaging people who are warm, aloof, introverted, cold. Solo people do not like to be around other people, but if they have to be around anybody at all, they would prefer to be around somebody who's more like them, because they're not going to get all in their business and bug them, okay? So if we think about the two dimensions together, these people who are controlling and strong and also cold and controlling and strong and warm prefer to work with the quadrant right below them. So if that's you here, you would work better with this type of person. If that's you here, you would work better with that type of person. We're going to do an exercise in a minute that brings you together to explore synergy, but I'm giving you a conceptual framework to start thinking about synergy. If you're building a team, don't put a bunch of these people together. Don't put a bunch of these people together. Mix it up. If you're building a team along this dimension, put a bunch of these people together, but provide some variance here. These dimensions have been around for many, many years. In fact, we think about them today. You've all heard the word extroversion. Extroversion is a combination of preferring to be a leader and being warm, and its polar opposite is introversion, which is preferring not to be around other people and preferring not to be in charge. And then we have another dimension, sometimes we call it Machiavellianism, being cold and calculating, like an evil genius type of person who's over here. And the polar opposite of that is the meek or the patient or the obsequious or perhaps exploitable, something or other. It looks like that, and it goes this way. These have been around for many, many, many years. In fact, they've been around for about 1,000 years in the Western world. And in our history, we have used them in astrology. You can see the different planets here: Mars, Jupiter, the Moon, Saturn. They've been associated with the physical elements: fire, air, water, and earth. We've used them to describe age over the years. So infants and babies tend to be more associated with this quadrant. Think about it. They don't really like to be bothered, and they like to be in charge. It's pure selfishness. And if you think about an adult who acts that way, we call them childish when they act that way many times. Youth, wanting to be in charge and engage other people, the fire of youth and the passion is very much like that. Once you grow out of that and you become a little bit more mature, you're a little bit more abiding and not bothering people all the time, and then the elderly are more associated with this. 1,000 years ago, doctors practiced medicine through this, and it was associated with different parts of the body. There was a reason that Leonardo da Vinci would cut bodies apart and look at the different parts and try to understand what makes people go. This was associated with the gallbladder, yellow bile, the heart, blood, brain, phlegm, spleen, black bile, and we even still use the language today. We call a baby choleric, or he has the colic or something like that. You've heard that term, that's where it comes from. Blood, phlegm, we call people phlegmatic today when they are calm and still. The root word of that is phlegm, which is mucus, and black bile is here. Now, in the old days when they practiced medicine, they did some really crude things like bloodletting and other sorts of things. Medicine has come a long way, but the tradition of all of this remains. These are actual photos from 500 years ago. You can see the words up there: choleric, sanguineous, phlegmatic, melancholy. And this is from a German calendar in the 1400s that was describing how people interact in terms of these dimensions. You have the cruel leader like punishing somebody. You have the strong, engaging person saying, "Come near me, darling." You have the more refined individuals abiding and interacting with one another with music. And then you have maybe an elderly couple there, and she's like, "Oh, he fell asleep at the table again." But I urge you, when you think about yourself and you think about others, try to place them on this dimension. It will help you as you interact with people. Now, I've just taken you on a very, very short crash course through the way we view human potential and human energy in the Western world, where we all are right now. I do have a lot of experience in Southeast Asia. I was a foreign student in China, and I'm going to share with you the way that the Chinese or the Japanese or the Korean culture, going back even farther, think about the same issues. And it looks like this. It's a very different framework, and I think all of you will find this very interesting because I think it will be new to a lot of you. This is called the 5 Elements Model. It is one of the foundations of Taoism. Taoism is all about balance. You never give everything hot without balancing out with cold. You're never loud without also being quiet. It is the nature of balance in the world. They use this in traditional Chinese medicine. We can also use it to think about our work styles and find synergy between people. When I was in Chicago, I used to have this on the wall next to my phone, and when I would get a call, based on the kind of energy that people were giving me, I would react based on what they were giving me, and if I wanted to encourage them to keep acting that way, or if I wanted to stop them from acting that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the 5 elements, and as I do that, I would like you to think about the meaning of each one, and again, like we did before, think about which one describes you best right now. It doesn't mean that you are like this forever. It just means that you are feeling this way right now, based on the season, or based on a project you're working on, or based on your mood, whatever it is. We'll start with wood. Mu in Chinese means wood. Wood is adaptable, like a plant. It grows. It grows toward the light. It avoids things it doesn't like. It is patient. It is somewhat pliable, but also somewhat rigid, and it grows. Here we're thinking about the creative type of individual that evolves in relation to the world. They are fed and they receive energy from the world around them and from the earth and from the sun, and it's a way to act. It's a way to be adaptable. Some people sometimes are very much like wood if you really break the elements down. The next one here is fire. Fire is passion. Fire is when you are angry or perhaps excited, and there's a lot of hot energy coming out of you because you're excited about what you're about to do, or you're excited about what somebody else did, or you're angry about what somebody else did, and there's a lot of energy there. Fire. Fire is huo. Can you say that? That's a Chinese word. Huo. Huo. It feels like fire when you say it. Huo. The next one is earth. Nothing is more fertile than the earth. Tu is the word for earth. The earth bears fruit in terms of things emerging out of it. The earth can absorb anything. We can be like the earth if we are very slow and very patient. Nothing throws us off, and we can receive anything you throw at us. We're that strong, but we're also that silent at the same time. Earth. Metal. Metal is jing. The word for metal is jing. It's also the word for gold and a couple of other things. But here we're talking about someone who stands fast to their principles. Your principles guide you. There's a lot of strength there. There's also a lot of rigidity. You will not bend in the face of a harsh force coming your way. And that harsh force will break you if it hits you hard enough, whereas a tree will bend around it. But metal describes standing fast to your principles. So as I'm going through these, I want you to think about which one is connecting with you the most right now. Water. The word for water is shui. Shui. It sounds like water. Water is lazy, but it can't be compressed. You cannot compress water. It is very strong, but it fills in the gaps. It's also cool. It will flow into any space. Even more so, it's more adaptable than a tree, but it does not have an upward force as an organic element. It is strong, quiet, but almost powerless. The world acts upon it, but it can never eliminate it completely. Water. Sometimes we need to be like water, depending on what we are working on or who we're working with. Now, I've gone around and I've defined the 5 elements. The real magic of this model is how they interact with one another. Wood feeds fire because it burns it. Fire feeds the earth, generates the earth because it creates ash. Earth generates metal because the minerals that make metal come out of the ground. Metal generates water. How does it do that, you might ask? Think about it. Have you ever left your, garden tool in the front yard overnight and come out in the morning and it has condensation on it? Right? Or a roof or cold metal will condense moisture out of the air. A metal bowl will hold water. Metal generates water. What's going on with my screen here, guys? Just a minute. Water generates wood. It feeds wood. Plants grow based on water. That is what we call the cycle of creation in the Chinese Wu-Xing model. When you act like wood, you generate people and get them excited and create passion in them. When you act passionately, you tend to, if you're acting constructively with somebody, they tend to be strong and just absorbent, and you give energy to them. If you act like a fertile sounding board almost, you can reinforce the principles of the person you're around. If you are acting in a principled way, the only way you're going to be able to interact with somebody like that is like being like water and being around them. This is the cycle of creation. This is the cycle of destruction. Wood destroys earth because roots push earth to the side and they grow out of it. Earth destroys water because it turns it into mud. Water will destroy fire. Fire will melt metal. Metal will chop wood. So based on the energy that somebody's giving you, if they're acting like fire and you want to calm them down, act like water. If you want to feed them and encourage them to be more passionate, act like wood. Using the definitions that I told you. So what we're going to do is a little example in here, right now. And you have some construction paper under your seat. They are colored paper. I think you also have a number. 50% of you should be 1, and 50% of you should be 2. These, I think, are drawn on your name tags. 1 or 2. So get your construction paper and just sit tight for a minute. Notice what number you are. And now I'm going to ask you to identify which of the 5 elements you feel the most connected with right now. Who feels like fire this morning? Raise your hand, please, if you feel like fire. Good. Who feels like earth this morning? Nice. Who feels like metal? Awesome. Who feels like water? Shui. And who feels like wood today? A lot of wood in here. A lot of wood. Makes sense with the creative mornings. All right. So, if you are number 1, look at the construction paper that you have, display that paper. If you are number 2, just hold it in front of you. You don't have to hold it up. So hold it so other people can see it. If you are number 2, do the same thing. And now for the next 5 minutes, ones, seek out your corresponding element. And when you find them, here's what I want you to do. Take a minute and tell them something that you're working on right now that is giving you energy. Or tell them something that you're excited about. Or tell them something that you want to share. And if you are a number 2, don't say anything. Just listen to them. Let them feed you with their energy. Let them feed you with whatever's on their mind. And what it should do to you is energize you. You should be inspired by it, even though they're coming up with something that you wouldn't have thought of. The fire of somebody else is going to energize you if you are feeling like Earth right now, and so on and so forth. We're not going to do the cycle of destruction because we want everybody to leave happy. We're going to do the cycle of creation. And so we're going to do this for the next 4 or 5 minutes, and then I'll call you back to order, and then we're going to switch and have the 2s do the 1s. So 1s, find your complementary sign, and let's get started. You connected with somebody that you would not have otherwise normally talked to. That is my first hope. My second hope is that you felt a little bit of a spark, a little bit of a synergy. I can tell you that the buzz was incredible, the noise, the cocktail party-like atmosphere putting off of the group was amazing, and I really hope you made those connections. If you're interested in reading more about this classical model, it's called Wuxing, W-U-X-I-N-G. You can Google it and look it up. There's a lot of material about it. I think in today's world we run the risk of being a little bit too divorced from nature, okay? Too divorced from our natural spiritual selves. We can be like all of these elements. We came and we are composed of all of these elements. They are part of us. And this has been around for a very long time. And people who were around 500 and 1,000 years ago, they had a lot of wisdom there. They made a lot of mistakes, but they also had a lot of wisdom. And I would urge all of you to learn about this model if you don't know about it already, because it does work. If you just try to act like wood, or act like fire, or metal, or earth, or water, it can create an impression on people, and people respond to each other's energy. You know that. You know that you give off energy, and you know that you receive energy from other people. And the energy takes on a particular character. Just because you're metal today doesn't mean you're always metal. You can become wood or fire based on what you're working on and based on what you're doing. And so I would ask you to just carry this wisdom forward with you. Research it, grow, develop in relation to it, and use it. So it was an absolute joy to be here for a short time with you today. I'm going to stop my formal presentation right now, and if you have anything you want to talk about or share or ask, please do so. But thanks.